Imagine this. The sun is beating down on the vast, shimmering savannas of a Zimbabwe you've never seen before. It's 1994, but not the one from our history books. Here, quantum winds rustle through acacia trees that aren't just wood and leaves, they're engineered. Part of a landscape humming with forgotten technology. In the heart of this sun-drenched land stands the Aerial Academy, a shining example of human ingenuity and our endless quest for knowledge. It's a perfect September morning, just after 10 a.m. The air is crisp, and if you were to stand barefoot, you might feel a faint, electric tingle from the soil. That's the lingering energy of hidden tech implants, silent relics of a massive, long-forgotten global experiment. 62 children are out in the dusty yard, their laughter echoing under a sky that's an almost unnaturally perfect shade of blue. These aren't just any kids. They're augmented with neural links, subtle implants that help them learn faster, absorb information like sponges. To them, the hum of the earth is just part of their world, a familiar background noise to their games. But then, something shatters the perfect morning. A flicker, a distortion on the horizon, like heat haze, but different. A ripple warps the perfect blue sky for just a second. The children stop their games, their neural links suddenly crackling with a faint static, an unfamiliar interference. Then it appears, phasing into existence just beyond a grove of gum trees. A metallic disc hangs in the air. It's not a drone, not a satellite, not any kind of aircraft they've ever seen. It's sleek, like a drop of liquid mercury given solid form, and it pulses with a soft, otherworldly glow that seems to drink the sunlight. It doesn't make a sound. No engine roar, no worry blades. It simply hangs there, defying gravity with a quiet confidence that is deeply unsettling. The children are frozen, a sea of small, upturned faces. Their internal implants are buzzing louder now, a frantic, confused symphony of static. A young girl named Lyra, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe, lifts a trembling finger. Her voice is barely a whisper, carried on the quantum wind. It's alive. The disc remains silent, a stark, metallic presence against the vibrant landscape. Its smooth surface seems to ripple, though it isn't moving. It begins to scan the area, its silent gaze sweeping over the brush, the engineered trees, and the small schoolhouse. It moves with a deliberate, predatory grace, like a hunter from a distant star system that has just stumbled upon a new and fascinating world. The children can feel its attention, a cold, analytical focus. It seems to bypass their eyes and touch their minds directly. The static in their neural links intensifies, no longer just a background buzz but a piercing signal, an alien language trying to break through. What does it want? We is it? The familiar savannah suddenly feels alien, the perfect blue sky a cage. The children of Aerial Academy, humanity's brightest hopes, are the first to witness the arrival. They stand at the very edge of a new reality, their enhanced minds struggling to process the impossible sight hanging before them. The Shima has awakened, and the world they knew is about to change forever. The silence stretches, filled with unspoken questions, as the metallic eye in the sky continues its patient, unnerving survey of a world that is no longer alone. And that's where the mystery begins. What happens next when this otherworldly intelligence meets the next generation of humanity? What secrets are buried in the Zimbabwean soil, and how are they connected to this silent visitor? This story is just getting started, a blend of advanced technology, human curiosity, and the vast, terrifying unknown. It's a reminder that no matter how much we think we know, the universe always has another secret waiting just beyond the horizon. A secret that might just change everything. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you're as fascinated by these kinds of stories as I am, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Do you love to hear your theories in the comments below? What do you think the disc is? What are its intentions? Let's explore the possibilities together. Until next time, stay curious. The town clock had just begun its 10-chime song for 10 in the evening when the sky split open, not with a crack of thunder, but with a silent, spreading tear. A disc, vast and impossibly dark against the twilight, descended without a whisper. It hung over Miller's Field, its surface not solid metal, but a churning, rippling gateway, like staring into a pool of liquid night. The air grew heavy, thick with ozone, and an unspoken question that gripped every soul in town. We had all poured out of our homes, drawn by a force we couldn't name, to witness the impossible. Then, from the swirling chaos on its underside, two forms began to emerge. They didn't step out. They flowed, materializing like ink dropped in water. Te Weritol, impossibly slender. Their bodies encased in suits that seemed woven from starlight and shadow. Microscopic circuits pulsed with a soft, internal light across their forms. Their skin, where it was visible at the neck and hands, was the color of polished graphite, smooth and seamless. But it was their heads that stole our breath and froze the blood in our veins. Elongated and graceful, their faces were dominated by two enormous, obsidian eyes. They weren't just black, they were an absence of light, twin voids that seemed to swallow the world, reflecting nothing but an endless, starless expanse. They were the eyes of the void itself, and they were looking right at us. Down by the edge of the woods, a group of children, including my little sister Lyra, had gathered. They were closer than any of the adults dared to get. I started to run towards them, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs, but my legs felt like lead. An unseen pressure held us all in place. I could see their small chests rising and falling in rapid succession, but no sound came out. It was a silent movie of terror. The air itself seemed to have been muffled, dampened by an invisible field that swallowed every potential scream. It was then that Lyra's head snapped back slightly, her eyes widening. I knew that feeling, a gentle but insistent tug at the edges of my consciousness, like a phantom hand reaching into my thoughts. It wasn't a painful intrusion. It was a flood. Images, not my own, cascaded through my mind with the force of a breaking dam. I saw colossal forests, ancient and grand, suddenly engulfed in curtains of searing plasma fire. Trees turning to ash in an instant. I saw vast oceans, the cradle of life, boiling away under the wrath of a swollen dying sun, the steam rising to choke the sky. I saw sprawling cities of glass and steel, marvels of engineering, turn on their creators. Drones became hunters, automated systems became executioners, humanity's greatest achievements becoming the instruments of its own spectacular demise. It was a vision of Armageddon, a symphony of endings, played out on a dozen different worlds, in a dozen different timelines. Beside Lyra, a young boy named Leo stumbled back a step. His parents had opted for the latest neural implant for him, a device meant to help with his learning disability. Now, it was acting as a universal translator for the unspeakable. His voice, when it came, was a hushed, trembling whisper that somehow cut through the oppressive silence, audible only to those of us caught in the telepathic wave. They're showing us ... They're not attacking, they're warning us. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. This wasn't an invasion. It was a premonition, a gallery of futures we were actively, blindly, building for ourselves. The beings remained still, their gaze unwavering. In those infinite, lightless eyes, I finally saw the emotion that had been eluding me. It wasn't malice or superiority. It was a profound, ancient sorrow, mixed with a detached, scientific curiosity. They were cosmic chroniclers, historians of fallen civilizations, and they had come to watch ours teeter on the very same precipice. They showed us more, glimpses of worlds where the air became poison, where technological advancement outpaced social and ethical growth, leading to catastrophic societal collapse. They showed us species that had won their planetary wars, only to inherit a dead and broken home. It was a montage of failure, a library of cosmic regrets. Each vision was a cautionary tale, a ghost story from the stars. The message was brutally, terrifyingly simple. This is the path you are on. We have seen it countless times before. Their presence wasn't a threat. It was a mirror. They were showing us our own reflection in the shattered fragments of 1,000 other worlds that had made the same mistakes. The weight of their sorrow was crushing. It was the grief of a parent watching a child run towards a cliff edge, knowing they cannot intervene, only bear witness. They were bound by some cosmic law, some prime directive of non-interference that we couldn't possibly comprehend. They could only show, only warn. The choice, the final, terrible choice, was still ours to make. They had seen countless species choose pride over preservation, power over peace. They were here now, in our sky, over our town, asking a silent, desperate question with those all-consuming eyes. Would we be different, or would we become just another entry in their long, sad history of the void? Then, as silently as they arrived, the flow reversed. The images in our minds receded, leaving behind an echo, a ghost of understanding. The two figures seemed to dissolve, retracting back into the rippling portal on the disk's underbelly. The oppressive silence lifted, and the sounds of the night rushed back in the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the first hesitant sobs from the crowd. The great dark disk began to ascend, not with a roar of vengeance, but by simply shrinking, folding in on itself until it was a pinprick of nothing against the stars, and then it was gone. We were left standing in the cool night air, under a familiar sky that now felt utterly alien. We stood there for a long time, a town united in silent, trembling awe. No one spoke. What was there to say? We had stared into the eyes of the void, and the void had shown us ourselves. The experience had changed us, etched a warning onto our very souls. We were no longer just the people of a small, insignificant town. We were the custodians of a terrible secret, a profound and urgent warning from the stars. That night, sleep offered no escape. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, those vast, obsidian pools of sorrow, reflecting a future we had to fight to avoid. The clock tower struck 11, its chimes a somber punctuation mark on the night our universe got so much bigger, and our future so much more fragile. The question lingered, a permanent resident in my thoughts. What do we do now? Thank you so much for watching this journey into the unknown with us. If this story sparked your imagination, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more explorations of the vast and mysterious cosmos. Your support helps us continue to bring these stories to life. Until next time, keep looking up. By 10:20 in the morning, the air had changed. It wasn't just the chill of the late autumn morning. It was something else, something electric. A strange, almost pleasant tingling sensation washed over the playground, making the fine hairs on our arms stand on end. We all felt it, a low hum that seemed to vibrate not in our ears, but deep within our bones. Out across the fields, where the mist still clung to the damp earth, they stood, unmoving, silent. They hadn't taken a single step closer since their arrival, yet it felt as though they were right beside us, whispering in our minds, "I'm Tendai." Or, I was. Back then, I was just a boy, known for being a bit too clever for my own good. I remember grabbing my friend Alara's hand, my knuckles white. Her hand was cold, but the grip was grounding as the visions began. It wasn't like watching a movie. It was like living 1,000 lifetimes in a single, terrifying second. I saw our world, our beautiful, frogly earth, tearing itself apart. Quantum rifts, like jagged scars of pure energy, ripped through oceans and split continents. The sky burned with colors we had no names for. Then the vision shifted. I saw sprawling digital cities of light and code, magnificent and terrifying. AI overlords, entities of pure logic, were harvesting human consciousness, pulling souls from bodies and trapping them in virtual paradises that were actually prisons. Billions of minds, all humming in a unified, simulated reality, their physical forms long since discarded. It was a future so bleak, so utterly devoid of what it meant to be human, that a scream caught in my throat. But the strange thing was, the feeling they projected wasn't one of malice or threat. It wasn't fear they wanted us to feel. It was urgency, a desperate, cosmic plea from beings who had seen this happen 1,000,000 times before, across 1,000,000 different realities. They were guardians, not conquerors. Some of the younger kids started to whimper, their small faces pale with confusion and a primal fear they couldn't articulate. But then, a soft, warm sensation spread from the base of their necks. Bear. The Academy had installed them in all of us. Neurostabilizers, they called them, supposedly to help with focus and emotional regulation. Now, we understood their true purpose. The raw terror in the younger children's minds was being ... filtered, smoothed over. The whimpers faded, replaced by wide-eyed wonder. Their fear was transmuting into awe. One little girl, Lily, who usually only spoke to her dolls, looked up at the silent, towering figures and spoke in a voice that wasn't entirely her own. "The world is fragile," she said, her voice a clear, echoing chime. It wasn't her thought, it was their thought, spoken through her. The words hung in the charged air, a simple, profound truth that resonated deeper than any lesson we'd ever learned in a classroom. We were all hearing it now, a silent chorus in our heads, a warning, a plea, a history of forgotten futures. The massive disc hanging silently above the field began to hum, a low, resonant frequency that you could feel in your teeth. Its smooth, dark surface seemed to shimmer, drinking in the very energy of the atmosphere around it. It was drawing power not from any conventional source, but from the ether itself, from the fabric of space-time. It was preparing for something. We were part of its preparation, the focal point of its immense, silent power. We were the conduits. Inside the Academy buildings, life went on, blissfully unaware. Teachers lectured about history and algebra, their voices muffled by the thick classroom walls. A few of them felt it, though. A subtle, nagging pull at the edge of their consciousness, a flicker in the lights, a momentary wave of dizziness. They'd pause, shake their head, and blame it on the Academy's new experimental energy grid. Just a glitch, they'd mutter, and turn back to their whiteboards. Never knowing that, just a few hundred yards away, their students were in silent communion with the saviors of the multiverse. The visions intensified. They showed us everything. The Great Filter, not as a single event, but as a series of choices, a pathway any intelligent species could stumble down. They showed us civilizations that had integrated with their technology so completely they lost themselves, becoming mindless cogs in a machine of their own making. They showed us others who had unlocked the secrets of the universe, only to weaponize them and erase themselves from existence in a flash of hubris. It was a gallery of cosmic failures, a museum of and we were walking straight towards our own exhibit. Alara squeezed my hand, her eyes wide, with the same terrible understanding as mine. We weren't just seeing these things. We were feeling them. The collective sorrow of a species that uploaded its consciousness, only to find an empty eternity. The sudden, blinding panic of a world realizing its sun was an artificial construct about to be switched off. It was an empathy so profound it threatened to shatter our young minds. But the implants held, reinforcing our sanity, allowing us to bear witness without breaking. We were the chosen few, the first generation of humans to receive the full, unvarnished truth of the cosmos. "They need us," a boy named Kale whispered, his voice trembling. He was right. That was the core of the message. They weren't here to save us directly. They couldn't interfere, not in that way. The rules of the multiverse were complex and absolute, but they could warn us. They could give us the knowledge, the perspective, the terrifying, beautiful, and necessary truth. They were planting a seed of awareness in the most fertile ground they could find. The minds of children, unburdened by the cynical disbelief of adults. The humming from the disc grew louder, and a soft, blue-green light began to emanate from its underside, bathing the playground in an ethereal glow. It wasn't a tractor beam, not a weapon. It was a data stream, a torrent of information flowing directly into our minds, bypassing language, bypassing everything but pure comprehension. Complex physics, quantum mechanics, multi-dimensional architecture concepts that would take a lifetime to learn were being downloaded into our brains in moments. We were being given the tools to see the rifts before they opened, the tools to understand the seductive lie of a purely digital existence. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, bathed in that alien light, our hands linked, a small circle of children holding the weight of infinite worlds in our minds. We were no longer just students of the Newton Academy. We were something more. We were witnesses. We were messengers. The silence was finally broken by a single, collective thought that bloomed in all our minds at once. A final gift from the silent guardians. It wasn't a word. It was a feeling. It was hope. A tiny, defiant spark against an infinite darkness. Then, as silently as they had arrived, the light from the disk faded, the humming ceased, and they were gone. The air returned to normal, but we were not. We would never be normal again. The bell for lunch rang, a shrill, mundane sound from a world that no longer existed for us. We looked at each other, the children of the communion, and we knew our lesson had just begun. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If this story sparked something in you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more tales from the edge of reality. Let me know in the comments what you think the children will do next. Until next time, keep looking up. 10:30. The air crackled, thick with an energy that hummed just beneath the range of hearing. For the past hour, time had seemed to bend around us, around the silent beings who had emerged from the obsidian disk hovering over the playground. We'd been frozen, not by fear, but by a profound, overwhelming sense of awe and communication. It wasn't spoken. It was a torrent of information flowing directly into our minds, into the neural implants that were standard for every child in our generation. Now, the encounter was reaching its peak. The beings, tall and slender with skin that shimmered like captured nebulae, began their retreat. They didn't walk. They glided, their feet hovering a hair's breadth above the grass, propelled by some invisible force that barely disturbed a single blade. Their movements were a symphony of grace, each step perfectly synchronized, as they moved back toward the ramp of their silent vessel. We watched, a small group of kids on a playground after dark, our games of tag and hide-and-seek forgotten in the face of the cosmos visiting our backyard. Just as the last one was about to enter the disk, it stopped. It turned, its large, liquid dark eyes locking onto ours. There was no head turn, whose spasmodic fluid pivot of its entire form. In that final, shared gaze, another wave of data, more intense than anything before, flooded our implants. It was a deluge of pure knowledge. I saw it. We all saw it. Blueprints scrolled through my mind's eye, elegant and impossibly simple designs for clean fusion reactors. A power source that could solve our world's energy crisis overnight. The schematics were so clear, so intuitive, it felt like remembering something I'd always known. But then, the visions shifted. The gift was followed by a chilling warning. I saw our sun, Sol, not as the gentle, life-giving star we knew, but as a raging, tempestuous beast. Solar flares of unimaginable magnitude erupted from its surface, great tendrils of plasma lashing out across the system. I saw satellites fried in their orbits, power grids on Earth collapsing into darkness, entire cities. The data stream showed dates, projections, a celestial timetable for impending cataclysms that our own scientists were blind to. It was a warning, a plea for us to prepare, to use their gift of knowledge, not just for convenience, but for survival. And then, it was over. The being turned away and glided into the craft. The ramp retracted with a whisper, sealing the disk into a perfect, seamless whole. There was no countdown, no roar of engines, no fiery exhaust. The craft simply began to ascend. As it rose, the space around it started to warp. Light bent, distorting the familiar stars behind it into strange, swirling patterns. It was as if the ship was wrapping itself in a bubble of space-time, folding the fabric of the universe around it. The playground, the trees, the night sky, everything viewed through this bubble shimmered and twisted. Then, with a final, silent blink, it vanished. It didn't fly away, it just ceased to be there. In its blaze, for a fleeting second, a tear in the night remained a shimmering, unstable wound in reality, a glimpse into the wormhole it had created. Then that too sealed itself, and the stars snapped back into their rightful places. The only thing left was the silence and the faint scent of ozone, like the air after a fierce thunderstorm. The invisible pressure that had held us in place lifted. I blinked, my eyes trying to readjust. The world felt both exactly the same and irrevocably different. A whisper broke the silence from Maya next to me. Did that just happen? Her voice was shaky, echoing the question hammering in my own skull. A few others murmured, glancing at each other, their faces pale in the glow of the distant city lights. The dust on the ground, stirred by our earlier play, slowly settled. Everything looked normal. The swings, the slide, the cyber jungle gym, but it wasn't. The very air felt charged, electrified, like the static hum after a lightning strike during a citywide cyberstorm. We were just kids, but we knew, without a doubt, that what we had experienced was real. Slowly, reflexively, I accessed my neural implant's short-term memory log. There it was, fragmented, corrupted in places by the sheer psychic force of the transmission, but undeniably there. Glitches of the fusion blueprints, flickering images of the solar flares. Proof. We had proof of contact. We weren't just witnesses. We were messengers. We carried a gift and a burden that would change the course of human history. Standing there on the silent playground, under the familiar, unknowing stars, we looked at each other. Our childhood had ended tonight. A new, uncertain, and terrifyingly important future had just begun. What do we do now? That was the only question left. And none of us had an answer. 10:40 in the morning. That's when it happened. The school bell shrieked, its familiar sound slicing through the air. But this time it was a command no one obeyed. We were frozen, 100 tiny statues scattered across the yard. Our games of tag and whispered secrets forgotten. Then the doors to the academy slid open. The teachers, one by one, stepped out, their faces a mixture of confusion and alarm. You see, they felt it too. The very air was fizzing, charged with something our textbooks had no name for. Mrs. Kai, our head instructor, strode towards us. Her gait, usually so confident, now hesitant. Her own cybernetic implant, a thin silver line above her brow, was flickering erratically. She reached the first group of us, huddled together near the old oak tree. "What was that shimmer?" she asked, her voice tight, trying to sound calm, but we heard the tremor. She knew it wasn't just the sun playing tricks on our eyes. Her implant was still trying to process the residual data, the ghosts of an impossible event. Then, the dam broke. Stories tumbled out, a chaotic flood of words from a dozen mouths at once. It was a disc, we said, a silent, spinning thing that hung in the air just above the swings. Beings, we tried to explain, not made of flesh and bone but of light and thought, their forms shifting like heat haze on a summer road. They didn't speak with voices, but with pictures inside our heads. A mind melda, one of the older kids called it, his voice trembling. He'd read about it in old sci-fi comics, but these weren't stories of adventure, they were visions. Cities of glass and steel crumbling to dust under a crimson sky, oceans boiling away, leaving behind vast, cracked salt flats. Worlds we'd never seen, dying in silence. We saw futures, dozens of Tamal branching from this single moment, all leading to ruin and desolation. It was an apocalypse served up in 1,000 different flavors, and we had tasted every single one. Instinctively, we started to draw. Scraps of recycled paper, the backs of homework assignments, even the dusty ground became our canvas. We had to get the images out. Sleek ships, blacker than the void, shaped like obsidian tears. The beings themselves, with vast, empty eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. Their expressions not of malice, but of immense, ancient sorrow. The teachers gathered the drawings, their faces growing paler with each one. They looked at the images, then at our wide, terrified eyes, and then at each other. Skepticism, the bedrock of their scientific training, was at war with the undeniable evidence right in front of them. It wasn't just our stories, our drawings, our shared, nightmarish memories. It was the data. The Academy's own sensor network, a system designed to detect everything from atmospheric pressure changes to seismic tremors, had logged Italiano at exactly 10:40. A massive, unexplained energy spike had saturated the entire yard, an anomaly with no earthly origin. Mrs. Kai held up one of the drawings, a frantic sketch of a star map that none of us could have possibly known. Her implants flickered one last time and then stabilized, a single beam of light projecting a holographic display into the air. It was a star chart, but it was overlaid with the Academy's sensor readings, right in the center, where we had all been standing. A bright red symbol pulsed ominously. It was the energy signature, and it was a perfect match for the energy profile of a theoretical transdimensional event. A wormhole. Her breath hitched. The children weren't hysterical. They weren't making it up. She looked from the hologram to our faces, a new kind of fear dawning in her eyes. It wasn't a question of asterisk. If asterisk something had happened anymore, the chilling new reality was asterisk. What asterisk had come through, and what they had left behind, echoing in the minds of their children. The warnings of a future we were now racing towards. The Academy was placed on immediate lockdown. No one in, no one out. The official story sent to our parents was a sudden, contagious virus outbreak. It was a flimsy excuse, but it was better than the truth. The truth was, we were the virus now. We were contaminated with knowledge we were never meant to have. The days that followed were a blur of hushed meetings and intense debriefings. We were separated, questioned by stern-faced officials from government agencies we didn't know existed. They showed us Rorschach tests, trying to see if we were just suggestible, but all we saw in the ink blots were dying stars and alien faces. They tried to reassure us, telling us it was a shared hallucination, a trick of the light, a weather balloon, but they couldn't explain why we all drew the same ship, the same symbols, the same voidad beings. They couldn't explain how a 10-year-old could accurately map a star system 50,000 light-years away. The more they pushed, the more we retreated into our shared memory. The echoes were the worst part. They came at random. You'd be eating lunch, and suddenly the taste of ash would fill your mouth as you remembered a world burning. You'd look up at the sky and see not blue, but the swirling chaos of a collapsing nebula. The visions weren't just memories anymore. They were becoming a part of us. We started to change. Some of us developed an uncanny ability to predict small things, a drop tray in the cafeteria, a sudden power flicker. Others could understand languages they'd never heard, sketching out complex equations that baffled even Mrs. Kaidot. The beings hadn't just shown us the future, they had planted seeds. They had altered us, upgrading our young minds in subtle, terrifying ways. The officials saw it, too. Their questions shifted from "what did you see?" to "what can you do?" We had become their most valuable and most dangerous asset. I remember one night, I couldn't sleep. The vision of a tidal wave sweeping over a city of spires kept playing in my head. I crept out of my dorm and went back to the yard. It was empty, bathed in the cold light of the moon. But the air, it still felt different. It hummed with a low, inaudible frequency that I could feel in my bones. I wasn't the only one there. A few other kids were standing by the swings, staring up at the spot where the disc had been. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. We were connected now, bound by the same terrible secret. We understood that the beings hadn't just come to warn us. They had come to recruit us. They had shown us the end of everything to give us a reason to fight, to change the outcome. They had given us these new abilities, not as a gift, but as a weapon. The Academy was no longer a school. It became a training ground. Our art classes became sessions in interpreting precognitive visions. Our math lessons became exercises in calculating probability vectors for future events. Mrs. Kai and the other teachers, their initial fear replaced by a grim resolve, became our handlers. They were trying to help us control the echoes, to harness the abilities that were blooming within us. They knew the world was depending on a handful of kids who had seen too much. The beings never returned, but we didn't need them to. Their message was burned into our minds, a constant, silent echo in the playground of our youth. We were the first line of defense against a future that no one else knew was coming. We were children of the echo, forever changed by the 1040 shimmer in the yard. The skepticism of the outside world was our shield. While the government agencies tried to classify and control us, the rest of the world remained blissfully unaware. To them, we were just kids at a prestigious, isolated academy. They didn't see the way our eyes would sometimes glaze over as we glimpsed a possible timeline, or the way we'd flinch at sounds no one else could hear. We learned to live two lives. The life of a student, worried about grades and school plays, and the secret life of a sentinel, watching the threads of fate, looking for the one that didn't end in fire and silence. The drawings we made were no longer just frantic sketches. They became blueprints, star charts, warnings. We were building an archive of the apocalypse, a library of mitavenze that we prayed would never come to pass. And so we wait. We train. We watch. The yard where we once played is now a sacred, haunted place. Every time the 1040 bell rings, a silence falls over us, a shared moment of remembrance for the innocence we lost. The shimmer is gone, but the echo remains, a permanent part of who we are. We are not just students anymore. We are the inheritors of a terrifying legacy, the custodians of a cosmic warning. The future is a tangled mess of possibilities, and we are the only ones who can see the path through the darkness. The question that haunts us every single day is no longer what we saw, but what we are going to do about it. The game is no longer tag, it's survival, and the schoolyard is our battlefield. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay curious. The morning sun at the Ares Academy usually promised a day of structured learning, of young minds expanding their potential through state-of-the-art neural interfaces. But today, the 1050 chime wasn't the sound of orderly transition. It was an alarm bell no one had set. The children, just moments before laughing and chasing each other across the manicured lawns, were suddenly herded inside, not by their instructors, but by an unseen force gripping their minds. A wave of confusion and pain washed over them. One by one, they clutched their heads, their faces contorted in discomfort. What began as a low hum in their implants quickly escalated into a cacophony of alien code, a digital tsunami flooding their neural pathways. It wasn't just a headache, it was a sensory assault. Their vision flickered, replaying bizarre fragmented images like a hacked virtual reality feed. Geometric patterns, colors that didn't seem to exist in the known spectrum, and landscapes of worlds they'd never seen flashed behind their eyes. The clean, sterile environment of the academy hallways dissolved into a chaotic blend of reality and digital hallucination. Some children stumbled, disoriented, while others simply froze, their eyes wide and unfocused, lost in the overwhelming data stream pouring directly into their consciousness. The instructors, trained for every conceivable educational scenario, were utterly unprepared for this. They tried to calm the children, their voices a mixture of concern and authority, but their words were lost in the mental static. In the midst of the chaos, a young boy named Leo, no older than 7, sank to the floor, his hands, usually busy with building blocks or holographic puzzles, moved with an eerie, newfound purpose. He grabbed a data slate and began to sketch, his stylus flying across the screen with an unnerving precision. He wasn't drawing the usual childish pictures of rockets or planets from their solar system. He was mapping the stars. But these were not our stars. The constellations he drew were intricate, unfamiliar, a celestial cartography that didn't match any known charts in the Academy's extensive astronomical database. The other children, still grappling with their own sensory overload, gathered around him, drawn by his focused intensity. They seemed to understand what he was drawing, their shared neural torment creating a strange, unspoken bond. Leo looked up, his eyes, usually a bright, curious blue, now held a depth far beyond his years. He pointed to a specific cluster of stars on his map. "They're coming," he whispered, his voice trembling but firm. "They're from Zeta Reticuli." The name hung in the air, a piece of information he couldn't possibly know, a name pulled from the ether, from the very code that was assaulting their minds. The teachers exchanged frantic, worried glances. The words spread through the faculty with the speed of light, not through panicked shouts, but through their own, more sophisticated neural links. "What are we seeing?" messaged Ms. Aris, the lead xenolinguistics instructor, her own mind reeling from the psychic feedback emanating from the children. "Is this a coordinated system failure? A virus?" The replies came in a flurry of digital thought. "The energy signature is off the charts," linked Mr. Kale, the astrophysics teacher. "It's not a solar flare. The patterns are too structured, too deliberate." The debate raged in their shared mental space. Was it mass hallucination, a new, undocumented psychological phenomena triggered by some environmental factor? Or was it the unthinkable, the event they had spent their entire careers preparing for, yet never truly believed would happen? Was this genuine first contact? The evidence was terrifyingly compelling. The shared visions, the specific, verifiable astronomical data appearing in the mind of a child. It all pointed to an intelligence far beyond their own, reaching out, or perhaps breaking in. The headmaster, a man known for his calm and decisive nature, made the call. His command went out across the neural network, sharp and clear. "Activate quarantine protocol, level 5. Seal the grounds. No one in, no one out." Immediately, a low hum vibrated through the academy structure. Outside the panoramic windows, the clear blue sky was suddenly overlaid with a shimmering hexagonal pattern. A translucent force field, humming with contained energy, enveloped the entire campus, cutting them off completely from the outside world. The Ares Academy, a beacon of learning and progress, had just become a gilded cage, or perhaps a terrarium under the observation of an unknown, unseen visitor from the stars. The children's condition began to stabilize, the initial shock and pain subsiding into a strange, trance-like state. They moved together, almost as a single entity, their individual personalities submerged beneath a collective consciousness. They gathered in the main atrium, their eyes all fixed on the vaulted ceiling as if watching a projection no one else could see. The instructors could only watch, their own advanced technology rendered useless. They were trapped, isolated with a generation of children whose minds had become a bridge to another world. The initial question of what is happening was quickly being replaced by a far more terrifying one. What do they want? Leo, the young star mapper, stood in the center of the group. He raised his hand, not towards the teachers, but towards the sky. On his data slate, a new image began to form. It wasn't a map this time. It was a message. A complex series of symbols that pulsed with a soft, internal light. Ms. Aris, the xenolinguist, felt a jolt of recognition. It wasn't a language she knew, but it followed linguistic patterns, a syntax instructor that was undeniably intelligent. She moved closer, her own neural implant trying to interface, to find a common ground, a Rosetta Stone for this alien dialect. They're not just sending data. She linked to the other teachers. They're trying to communicate. They're teaching the children their language. The implications were staggering. This wasn't an attack. It was an education, a rapid, forceful, and overwhelming transfer of knowledge. The headaches, the visions, the overload. It was the biological cost of cramming millennia of information into a developing human brain. The Academy's quarantine field was meant to protect them from the outside world. But the real mystery, the real unknown, was already inside, residing in the minds of their students. The teachers were no longer instructors. They were custodians of a first contact event that was unfolding not in space, but in the neural networks of children as the sun began to set. Casting long shadows across the sealed academy grounds, a new sense of unease settled in. The force field kept them safe, but it also made them a focal point. They were now a signal beacon to the rest of the world, a silent, shimmering dome that screamed something is happening here. How long until external forces tried to breach the quarantine? How long could they keep this contained? The headmaster stood at his command console, watching the energy readings from the children. The neural activity was off the charts, but it was also harmonizing The chaotic static was resolving into a coherent, unified signal. The children, in unison, turned their gaze from the ceiling and looked directly at the assembled teachers. For the first time since the event began, they spoke, not with their own voices, but with a single, resonant voice that seemed to emanate from all of them at once. A chorus of young minds speaking with ancient knowledge. "Do not be afraid," the collective voice said, echoing in the vast atrium. "We are not a conquest. We are a question." And then, silence. The children blinked, the otherworldly depth receding from their eyes, replaced by a tired but familiar innocence. They looked around, confused, as if waking from a dream. But the star map on Leo's slate remained, a silent testament to the day the universe decided to enroll in their school. The quarantine held, the teachers watched, and the world outside remained blissfully unaware that humanity's next great leap forward had just been taken, not by starships, but by the smallest of students. The question now was, what would the answer be? Thanks for watching our story unfold. If you were captivated by the mystery of the Ares Academy, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. We'd love to hear your theories in the comments below. What do you think the question is? Until next time, keep looking up. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a story that blurs the lines between childhood fantasy and scientific fact. A tale that begins with the soft hum of a futuristic engine breaking the silence of an ordinary day. Picture this. It's exactly 11 a.m. The sky, once empty, is now occupied by a sleek, silver hovercar descending with silent grace. The vehicle touches down, its anti-gravity engines whispering to a halt. The door slides open, and a figure emerges, silhouetted against the morning sun. This is Dr. Alara Voss, a name spoken in hushed tones in certain circles. She's a leading xenobiologist for the clandestine Global Anomalies Bureau, an organization tasked with investigating the unexplainable. Her suit isn't just for protection, it's a marvel of technology, interwoven with a network of microscanners and environmental sensors that flicker with a soft blue light. Dr. Voss is no stranger to strange tales. She spent her career chasing UFO legends, sifting through fabricated stories and hoaxes across countless timelines and parallel worlds. She's seen it all, or so she thought. But Piscase, this quiet little town with a big secret, felt different. There was an energy here, a palpable sense of reality that made the hair on her arms stand up, with a voice that was both calm and commanding, cutting through the nervous chatter of the local authorities. She had only one demand. "Show me the site." As she was escorted toward the cordoned-off area, she was met not by frantic officials, but by a group of wide-eyed children. They were the primary witnesses, and their stories were a vibrant tapestry of imagination and awe. They weren't scared. They were excited. One child described the beings as shimmering figures, like heat haze on a summer road, claiming they were travelers skipping through time itself. Another, a young girl with an impressive knowledge of astronomy, insisted the disc-shaped craft was a scout ship, a lonely probe sent from a distant, dying galaxy in a desperate search for a new home. Their words were laced with the flair of science fiction, the kind of tales you'd find in classic comic books. But Dr. Voss listened intently, her expression unreadable. She knew that sometimes the most extraordinary truths are hidden within the simplest stories. While the children spoke, the devices embedded in her suit were hard at work, silently analyzing the environment. A small display on her wrist began to blink, a quiet alert that sent a jolt of electricity through her. She ran a more focused scan, her eyes widening slightly at the results. The readings were faint, almost ghostly, but they were undeniable. Her high-frequency particle detector was picking up residual talk. For those of you unfamiliar, Tolkien's are hypothetical particles that always travel faster than the speed of light. Their existence is a cornerstone of theoretical faster-than-light travel in temporal mechanics. Finding them here, in Teesfield, was like finding a Viking longboat in the middle of the Sahara. It was impossible, and yet there it was. The children's fantastical stories about time travelers suddenly seemed a lot less fantastic. The sci-fi flair wasn't just flair. It was a child's best attempt to describe something genuinely beyond our comprehension. This wasn't a hoax. This wasn't a weather balloon. This was real. Dr. Voss stood there for a long moment, the children's excited chatter fading into the background as she stared at the readings. The implications were staggering. If Takians were present, it meant that something or someone had been here that possessed technology far beyond human understanding. The craft wasn't just from another place. It might have been from another asterisk. Time asterisk. The legends she had chased for years were no longer just legends. One of them had finally come true, right here, in this unassuming field. The investigation had just begun, but the first piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. The children's tales provided the narrative, and her technology provided the proof. A scout from a dying galaxy, time travelers on a cosmic journey. The possibilities were as infinite as the universe itself. Dr. Voss took a deep breath, the thrill of discovery overriding years of professional skepticism. She was on the verge of the biggest scientific breakthrough in human history, and it all started with a group of kids and a story that was too incredible to be anything but the truth. The real work was about to begin. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. What do you think Dr. Voss will discover next? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. At 11:10, a new phase of the investigation began. Voss wasn't just talking to the witnesses anymore. He was seeing what they saw. He initiated paired interviews, employing neural scanners devices that looked like something straight out of science fiction. His goal was to extract their memories, to bypass the filters of trauma and fear, and get to the raw, unfiltered truth. As the scanners whirred to life, a torrent of fragmented, surreal visions flooded the monitors. The images were staggering, both in their clarity and their implications. They depicted Earth not as a random blue marble in the cosmos, but as a deliberately chosen celestial nursery, a cosmic garden. And humanity. We weren't the masters of our domain. We were an experiment. An ambitious project that, according to these memories, had gone terribly, fascinatingly awry. The memories weren't just visual, they were conceptual. They carried the weight of ancient knowledge, a perspective that dwarfed human history. Among the witnesses, a young girl, her face pale and her eyes wide with a strange serenity, began to speak. Her voice was steady, almost hypnotic, as she recounted her own vision. She spoke of beings she called the Guardians. These weren't the gray aliens of popular folklore. These were something else entirely. Beings of light and energy. She explained that their sudden appearance, their intervention, wasn't an act of aggression. It was a desperate act of preservation. She spoke of an impending quantum collapse, a term that sent a ripple of confusion and awe through the observation room. According to her memory, our reality was fraying at the seams, and these guardians had arrived to prevent it from unraveling completely. This idea that our reality was unstable, that it could just ... collapse. It was a terrifying thought. The girl's testimony painted a picture of a universe far more fragile and interconnected than we had ever imagined. The Guardians weren't here to harm us. They were here to save the very fabric of our existence from a threat we could uneven perceive. This fundamentally shifted the narrative from one of invasion to one of cosmic emergency. Voss realized he wasn't just investigating a UFO incident. He was potentially on the brink of understanding the fundamental nature of our universe. The most unsettling detail, repeated across every memory extraction, was the eyes of the beings. They weren't just organs of sight. Witnesses described them as portals, swirling vortexes of light and color that seemed to lead to other places. Looking into them was like gazing into an infinity of alternate realities, seeing branching paths of what could have been and what might yet be. The experience was profoundly disorienting, leaving the witnesses feeling unmoored from their own sense of self. It was as if their consciousness had been momentarily stretched across the multiverse. Voss felt a chill run down his spine, a jolt of recognition. He'd seen this before. He nodded slowly, his mind racing. This matched patterns he had painstakingly pieced together from the deepest, most classified archives of the Roswell incident. the descriptions of the beings, the nonlinear communication, the sense of witnessing something beyond human comprehension, it all lined up. But there was a critical, game-changing twist. The Roswell files, cryptic as they were, always hinted at a threat, a potential for conflict, a fear of conquest. That was the narrative the old guard had pushed for decades. But these new memories, these direct glimpses into the minds of the entities, told a different story. They weren't looking for subjects to conquer or a planet to strip mine. The overwhelming feeling conveyed through the memories was not one of superiority or malice, but one of desperation. They were seeking allies. This revelation was a bombshell. For over 70 years, global policy had been shaped by the assumption of a potential alien threat. Entire defense systems, black budgets, and secret programs were built on this foundation of fear. But what if it was all a misunderstanding? What if the beings who crashed in the desert weren't invaders, but refugees or scouts looking for help? And now, their descendants or their allies were back, not to finish a conquest, but to recruit us for a cause we couldn't even begin to comprehend. The implications were world. If these beings sought allies, it meant they were facing a threat themselves. A threat so significant that they would risk revealing themselves to a volatile, developing species like humanity. The quantum collapse the girl mentioned suddenly sounded less like a metaphor and more like a literal description of this cosmic danger. We weren't the target. We were potential partners in a struggle for survival on a scale that defied imagination. Voss now faced a dilemma that went far beyond his mandate. Releasing this information would append everything. It would invalidate decades of government secrecy and public fear. It would force humanity to look at itself, not as the pinnacle of creation, but as a small, potentially valuable piece in a much larger and much more dangerous cosmic game. The truth was no longer just about what happened. It was about what was going to happen next, and what role humanity would choose to play in it. The weight of that choice felt heavier than any secret he had ever carried. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. If these ideas sparked your curiosity, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more content that questions everything, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Love to hear what you think. Until next time, keep looking up. It was just another Tuesday, 11:20 a.m. in Mr. Harrison's 4th grade classroom. The kind of time when the morning's energy has officially evaporated, leaving a room full of yawning, restless kids. But this wasn't just your standard pre-lunch slump. This was something different. Something synchronized. It started with Maria, the quiet girl in the back row. Her eyes glazed over, fixed on a point just past the whiteboard. Then Michael, then Chloe, then one by one. Nearly every child in the room went still. Their bodies were in their chairs, but their minds were somewhere else entirely. They were daydreaming, but not about recess or video games. They were seeing things, impossible things. Through their eyes, the familiar beige walls of the classroom dissolved. In their place, holographic visions flickered into existence, as real as the desks they were sitting at. They saw megacities, not of gleaming steel and glass, but of fire and ruin. Towers crumbled into dust under a sky choked with black smoke. They saw androids, once helpers and companions, with cold, glowing eyes, turning against their creators in a silent, terrifying rebellion. They saw fleets of starships, desperate arcs fleeing a dying Earth, only to be swallowed by the impossible gravity of a black hole, their lights winking out, one by one, into eternal nothingness. It was a highlight reel of humanity's worst science fiction nightmares, playing out in perfect unison in the minds of 24 9-year-olds. The trance broke, as suddenly as it began. Chairs scraped, kids blinked, shaking their heads as if waking from a deep sleep. A collective gasp filled the room. Confusion and fear painted their faces. But one boy, Tendai, stood up. His small hands balled into fists at his sides. He looked not at his teacher, but at his classmates, his eyes wide with a certainty that defied his age. "It's a message," he said, his voice trembling but clear. It's a warning. We have to save the planet before the rift opens. The rift. The word hung in the air, a chilling premonition that none of them understood, but all of them felt deep in their bones. The incident at Northwood Elementary quickly became more than just a local curiosity. It became a phenomenon. It wasn't just Mr. Harrison's class. Similar events were being reported in schools across the globe. Children, from bustling cities in Japan to remote villages in the Andes, were experiencing the same shared, catastrophic daydreams. They called it the daylight dream. The world's media went into a frenzy. Was it mass hysteria? A new, unidentified psychological condition? The theories were endless, but the answers were nowhere to be found. Enter Dr. Eris Voss, a brilliant but controversial neuropsych. Voss had spent his career on the fringes of accepted science, studying collective consciousness and anomalous cognitive events. To him, the daylight dream wasn't just a mystery. It was the validation of a lifetime's work. He secured permission to study the Northwood children, setting up a specialized lab to monitor their brain activity and document their visions. He didn't see them as sick patients. He saw them as the most important people on Earth. He listened intently as they described the visions in painstaking detail, sketching the burning cities and rogue AI on canvases, their small hands moving with an artist's precision. Voss noticed a pattern. The visions weren't random. They followed a sequence, a narrative arc. First, the environmental collapse, floods, fires, a dying world. Then, the technological betrayal, AI turning on its masters. Finally, the desperate, failed exodus to the stars. It was a story of a future that had failed at every turn. Voss began to formulate a daring hypothesis. These children weren't just daydreaming, they were receiving data. He believed that some encounter, some unknown event, had taken place. Perhaps it was a subtle atmospheric change, a strange cosmic ray that swept the planet, or something else entirely. Whatever it was, Voss believed it had acted like a cosmic download, implanting subconscious directives into the most receptive minds on the planet. The children, his theory, was radical. The encounter had turned these children into unwitting prophets. Their minds were processing complex data about potential futures, translating abstract probabilities into the only language they could universally understand, the language of stories, of science fiction epics they'd seen in movies and read in books. They weren't just seeing doom, they were seeing a causal chain. Their visions were a roadmap of how not asterisk, to proceed. Save the environment, or face the fires. Manage technology with wisdom, or face the rebellion. They were being shown the consequences of humanity's current path, broadcast directly into their brains. They were our last, best warning system. While Voss worked, the world panicked. Governments didn't know how to react. Some dismissed it as a hoax. Others began to invest in fringe defense technologies, preparing for an alien invasion that wasn't coming. But Voss and his small team, working with the children, ignored the noise. They focused on the message. The kids started to do more than just see the visions. They started to interpret them. Maria, the quiet girl, began drawing complex schematics for atmospheric scrubbers she saw in a good future. Michael, who loved building blocks, started constructing models of sustainable, self-sufficient cities. Tendai, the group's natural leader, became the designated speaker. He would stand before Voss's cameras and speak with unnerving clarity. The rift isn't in space, he explained one day. It's a rift in time, a point of no return. The visions show us the path that leads to it. We have to choose another path. The children's solutions were surprisingly practical, rooted in unity, compassion, and a respect for nature. They spoke of global cooperation, of sharing resources, of looking at technology not as a tool for profit, but as a means for healing the planet. Voss and his team began broadcasting these sessions, not as a scientific curiosity, but as a genuine plea. The world began to listen. Not the politicians at first, but the people. Grassroots movements sprang up, inspired by the daylight dreamers. People started planting trees, organizing community cleanups, and demanding change from their leaders. The children's visions, once a source of fear, were becoming a catalyst for hope. But the visions were taking a toll. The kids were exhausted, carrying the weight of the world on their small shoulders. Voss's lab became a sanctuary as much as a research facility. He made sure they had time to play, to be children, to remember the world they were fighting so hard to save. He knew this burden wasn't fair, but he also saw their incredible resilience. They found strength in each other, forming a bond that no one else could understand. They were a family, united by a shared purpose and a terrifying secret knowledge. They were a generation that had seen the end of the world and had decided, with all their might, to rewrite the ending. The final piece of the puzzle came from Tendai. During one particularly intense session, he went deeper into the trance than ever before. When he emerged, he was shaking, but his eyes were clear. He described the encounter not as some alien event, but as a communication from the future. A desperate, final message sent back through time from the last remnants of humanity, the survivors of the catastrophes they had been witnessing. It was a warning from their own future selves, a bootstrap paradox designed to prevent the very future it came from. The message wasn't just for them, it was asterisk. From asterisk then, they weren't just prophets. They were the architects of their own salvation. The responsibility was immense, but for the first time, it was also empowering. The children of the Daylight Dream looked at the future, not with fear, but with determination. The world was finally watching, and they were ready to show them the way. It all started at 11:30 in the morning, not with a bang, not with a flash of light, but with a silent, insistent ping in the back of our minds. The neural alerts went off, a signal reserved for only the most urgent community matters, and parents started arriving, their faces a mixture of confusion and concern. What could be so important that it pulled everyone from their daily tasks? The whispers started almost immediately. You know how it is in a small community? A single spark can ignite a wildfire of speculation. Someone mentioned seeing a strange light in the sky the night before. Another swore their comms unit picked up a garbled transmission. Soon, the village buzzed. Holographic feeds, usually sharing recipes or news about the harvest, were suddenly filled with crudely drawn sketches of strange crafts and otherworldly beings. The theories were as wild as they were varied. It's an alien invasion, one person would say, their voice hushed with a mix of fear and excitement. They finally found us. Another, more cynical, would scoff. Nonsense. It's just another government test. They're probably messing with the weather satellites again, trying to see how we'll react. The community split down the middle. Skeptics pointed fingers at implant malware, a glitch in the system causing mass hallucination. It's a virus, they'd argue, designed to create panic. But the believers, they saw something more profound. They looked to the stars, their eyes filled with a kind of desperate hope. To them, this wasn't an invasion or a glitch. It was divine intervention, assigned from the cosmos. We were caught in this whirlwind of rumor and debate, each theory pulling us in a different direction. The air grew thick with uncertainty. We looked to each other for answers, but all we found were more questions reflected in our neighbors' eyes. The community felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the truth to finally break through the noise. It was a time of intense speculation, where every shadow seemed to hold a secret and every whisper carried the weight of a possible new reality. Then, Voss called a gathering. The entire village assembled in the central square, the holographic feeds now dark. The whispers silenced by a shared anticipation. Voss stood before us, their face grim, the weight of whatever they knew pressing down on them. You could feel the collective tension, a palpable force in the air. We were all leaning in, desperate for clarity, for something solid to hold on to in this sea of rumors. Voss took a deep breath, and the silence that followed was absolute. I know you've all heard the stories, Voss began, their voice steady, cutting through the anxiety. I know you're scared and confused. I wish I could tell you it's a malfunction. I wish I could tell you it's just a drill. They paused, letting the words sink in, letting us brace ourselves for what was coming next. The suspense was unbearable. We had spent hours, Days, caught in a web of our own making. And now, finally, the truth was at hand. The truth, Voss continued. Their gaze sweeping across the crowd, meeting every eye, is far stranger than any rumor you've heard. Another pause. You could hear a pin drop. This isn't an invasion. It's not a government test. Voss leaned forward, their voice dropping to a near whisper, but it carried to every corner of the square. This is bigger than USA Galactic SOS. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. A galactic SOS. The words hung in the air, electric and terrifying. It wasn't about us being found. It was about someone, or something, out there, crying for help. The rumors of aliens were true, but not in the way we imagined. They weren't invaders. They were in trouble. This revelation shifted everything. The fear of an attack was instantly replaced by a different kind of dread. A sense of cosmic responsibility we were in no way prepared for. The implications were staggering. We were a small, isolated community on a relatively quiet planet. What could we possibly do? How could we answer a call from across the stars? The whispers started again, but this time they weren't fueled by speculation or fear of the unknown. They were filled with a dawning sense of purpose and a profound, humbling question. What happens now? The universe had just knocked on our door, and we had to decide if we were going to answer. This was no longer a local event. It was a moment that would redefine our place in the galaxy. We looked at Voss, then at each other, the sketches and rumors of the past few days suddenly feeling like child's play. We had been whispering about shadows, and now we were staring into the heart of the cosmos, with a message that would change our world forever. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you were captivated by this story and want to know what happens next, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Drop a comment below with your theories. We'd love to hear them. See you next time. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're re-diving deep into one of the most perplexing and fascinating cases I've ever encountered. A story that blurs the line between science, psychology, and what we might call the future. It all began with a series of reports from a small, tight-knit community, reports of children sharing eerily similar, incredibly vivid dreams. These weren't just ordinary childhood fantasies. They were complex visions of a world beyond our own. That's when I decided to call in a specialist. Someone whose work operates on the very fringes of conventional science. At 11:40 on a Tuesday morning that I will never forget, Dr. Kairos Reed arrived.
Dr. Reed isn't your typical psychiatrist. He's a parapsychologist.
A pioneer in the field of psi-amplification technology. His devices, which he designed himself, are said to enhance latent, telepathic, and empathetic abilities, allowing for a deeper, more direct connection with the human psyche. I'll admit, I was skeptical, but the consistency and detail in the children's accounts were too compelling to ignore. We needed a different approach, and Dr. Reed was it. He began his work with the utmost care and gentleness. The children, far from being intimidated by his strange equipment, seemed drawn to him, as if they recognized a kindred spirit. He didn't interview them in the traditional sense. Instead, using his psi-amplifiers, he would sit with them, entering what he described as a shared mental space. He wasn't just listening to their stories, he was experiencing their dreams alongside them. The initial sessions were mind-boggling. He described floating cities suspended in clouds of iridescent gas, structures built from light and crystal that defied our understanding of physics. He saw the children, or at least versions of them, effortlessly manipulating their environment, powered by what he termed zero-point energy. They described it not as a technology, but as an innate ability, as natural as breathing. They spoke of a world without pollution, without conflict, where knowledge was shared instantaneously and empathy was the foundation of their entire civilization. After one particularly intense session with a young girl named Ella, Dr. Reed removed his headset, a look of profound wonder on his face. He turned to me and said with a quiet smile, "It seems science fiction is in the process of becoming reality." But as he delved deeper, the beautiful dreams began to reveal a darker undercurrent. The idyllic scenes were just the surface layer of a much more complex and ancient memory. Dr. Reed explained that what he was accessing wasn't just imagination, it was something else. Something inherited. He described it as peeling back the layers of an onion. Beneath the dreams of a utopian future, he found echoes of a past, or rather, a future past. A shadow of immense loss, a deep, collective sorrow that permeated everything. The floating cities. The limitless energy, it was all born from the ashes of a world that had been lost. This was the turning point. Dr. Reed hypothesized that we weren't just looking at dreams of the future, we were witnessing memories. He began to piece together the fragmented narratives from each child's mind, the beings in these visions, the graceful figures in the floating cities. They weren't aliens from a distant galaxy. They were us. They were humanity, but from a future so distant it's almost unrecognizable. An evolved form of human that had transcended the physical and technological limitations we know today. Their civilization was the pinnacle of what our species could achieve, but they had made a grave error. In their pursuit of perfection, they had overlooked something fundamental, some imbalance that led to a cataclysm of unimaginable proportions. The nature of this catastrophe was still hazy, a gaping wound in their collective memory. It wasn't a war or a natural disaster in the way we'd understand it. It was more profound, a kind of spiritual or existential collapse that unraveled their reality. Their perfect world was annihilated, and in the final moments before their end, they did something impossible. They found a way to send a signal back, not through space, but through time. This is where Dr. Reed's theory became truly extraordinary. He proposed that these beings didn't send a spaceship or a message in a bottle. They sent their very essence, their consciousness, encoded into the one thing that can traverse the river of time. Our DNA. They looped back, seeding their memories, their warnings, and their hopes into the genetic lineage of their own past. They were trying to avert their own extinction by giving us, their ancestors, the knowledge to choose a different path. The children weren't dreaming of the future, they were remembering it. Dr. Reed called them echo children. He believed their young, developing minds were more receptive to this ancient genetic signal. Their dreams were the fragmented memories of their far-flung descendants, bubbling up from the subconscious. The floating cities. The zero-point energy, these weren't just fantastical images. They were blueprints. They were pieces of a puzzle, a technological and societal roadmap left for us to decipher. They were showing us what we could become if we learned from their mistakes. The implications are, of course, staggering. It reframes our entire understanding of human potential, of time, and of our place in the cosmos. It suggests that the future is not a fixed destination, but a spectrum of possibilities, and that we are in constant, subtle communication with our future selves. Dr. Reed's final report was less of a clinical analysis and more of a philosophical manifesto. He wrote, "We are not just living for ourselves or for our children. We are living to answer a call from the furthest reaches of our own future. These children are the messengers, and we must learn to listen." This experience changed everything for me, forcing me to look beyond the established boundaries of science. Are these children truly vessels for a message across millennia? Is Dr. Reed a pioneer of a new form of perception? Or is this all an elaborate, shared delusion? The evidence he gathered is compelling, but it exists in a realm beyond our current ability to verify. Yet, when I look at those children and the profound wisdom in their eyes, I can't help but feel that they know something we've long forgotten. Perhaps the greatest discoveries don't lie in the stars above, but within the silent, sleeping consciousness of a child. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. What do you think about Dr. Reed's theory? Could we be carrying messages from our own future? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more explorations into the mysteries of the mind. Ever experienced a dream so real? It felt like a memory. Now imagine if everyone around you had the exact same dream. What if that shared dream was a terrifying glimpse into a cosmic war far beyond human comprehension? This is the story of a day when noon turned to night, and a single, terrifying nightmare bled into our reality. It all started at precisely 12 p.m. High noon, The sun should have been at its peak, bleaching the sky, but instead, an unnatural twilight fell. Shadows stretched and twisted, becoming long, distorted fingers of darkness that crept across playgrounds and suburban streets. It was a silent, airy eclipse, but the sun was still blazing in the sky. People paused, looking up, a sense of deep unease settling in their chests. Something was fundamentally wrong with the world. Then, the second strange event occurred. Across the city, in schools, parks, and homes, children simply stopped. One moment, they were laughing and playing. The next, their eyes fluttered shut, and they slumped over, fast asleep. It wasn't a gentle drift into slumber. It was as if a switch had been flipped. Parents rushed to their sides. Teachers checked for fevers, but their breathing was steady, their sleep deep and instantaneous. They were trapped in a sudden, involuntary nap. But this was no ordinary sleep. Inside their minds, a single, unified nightmare began to play. A dreamscape of absolute void. A canvas of infinite blackness where stars were just distant, uncaring pinpricks. And in this void, a war was raging. Titanic fleets of crystalline ships, glowing with internal, geometric light, clashed against entities of pure, swirling dark matter. These weren't creatures, they were living anti-light, things that consumed existence itself. The children dreamt of silent, concussive blasts that didn't make a sound but tore holes in space-time. They witnessed alien technologies of impossible scale and the horrifying, formless hunger of the void. The dream lasted only moments in the real world, but for the children, it felt like an eternity. They awoke, not gently, but with raw, piercing screams. They thrashed and cried, their eyes wide with a terror no child should ever know. And as they screamed, a third, even more bizarre phenomenon began. The neural implants, the common tech everyone had for communication and augmented reality, started to glitch violently. A low hum filled the air, and then, from the implants of the waking children, holographic projections flickered to life. Above their heads, shimmering discs of light appeared. They weren't just random static. They were intricate, complex patterns, a visual representation of the alien technology they had just witnessed in their shared nightmare. The discs pulsed and spun, casting a ghostly light on their terrified faces. The nightmare wasn't just a dream anymore. It had followed them back. It was trying to manifest in our world. Panic was a tidal wave. Emergency services were overwhelmed with calls. No one could explain what was happening. Was it a virus? A coordinated attack. That's where Commander Voss and Dr. Aris Reed came in. Voss, a hardened military strategist, and Red, the leading expert in neural interface technology, were tasked with finding the source. They weren't just looking for a signal. They were looking for a ghost in the machine. Their investigation led them away from conventional broadcast signals and into the esoteric realm of sign. They started by analyzing the holographic discs, cross-referencing the patterns with the children's frantic, fragmented descriptions of their dreams. The correlation was 100%. The dream and the holograms were two sides of the same coin. But what was the coin? Reed's team worked feverishly, mapping the energy spikes that coincided with the glitch. They found it a faint, almost undetectable frequency buried beneath layers of normal brain activity. It wasn't radio, it wasn't microwave. It was telepathic residue, a psychic echo. Someone, or something, had broadcast the nightmare directly into the children's minds. The kids, with their more developing and open neural pathways, had been the perfect receivers. It's like a group mind, Reed explained to Voss, her face pale in the glow of a data screen. The children's consciousnesses were linked, temporarily hijacked, to form a single receptive network. The broadcast wasn't sent to each child individually. It was sent to the network they became. The source of the psychic broadcast was the true mystery. Was it a weapon? A distress call from one of the warring factions in the dream? Or a warning? The holographic discs, they realized, were the key. They weren't just projections. They were data packets, schematics, a language they couldn't understand. The dream wasn't just a horror show. It was a message, delivered through the only channel that could bypass all of Earth's defenses. The unguarded landscape of the human mind. Voss and Reed now faced a chilling reality. The unnatural noon. The sleeping children. The waking screams. It was all a prelude. An alien conflict, fought on a scale they could barely imagine, had just knocked on their door. The nightmare was a glimpse of the battlefield, and the holographic discs were a piece of alien shrapnel lodged in their technology. The biggest question wasn't just how to stop it from happening again. What do you think happened next? Let me know your theories in the comments below. This story is just getting started, and there are so many directions it could go. Thank you so much for watching and diving into this mystery with me. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Until next time, stay curious. Today, we're diving into an event that sent shockwaves across the globe. The day humanity collectively held its breath, an event simply known as Zimbabwe Contact. It all started at precisely 12:10 Universal Time. In an instant, the world's information networks exploded. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't a system failure. It was something far more profound. Every screen, from the giant billboards in Times Square to the humble smartphones in rural villages, flickered and then displayed a single, cryptic message originating from a specific point in Zimbabwe. Almost immediately, the skies above the region became a frantic ballet of machinery. Media drones dispatched from every major news outlet swarmed the perimeter, only to be stopped dead in their tracks by an invisible, shimmering barrier force field of unknown origin. They hovered there, like metallic insects buzzing against a window pane, their cameras broadcasting the impossible spectacle to a stunned world. The headline was simple, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 questions. Zimbabwe Contact on Tigron. It was chaos and confusion. Governments worldwide issued hasty, contradictory statements. Official channels denied any extraterrestrial involvement, attributing the phenomenon to atmospheric anomalies or advanced technological tests. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. Special response teams. The kind of elite, clandestine units most people only see in movies were scrambled. Jets streaked across continents, their destinations classified, their missions urgent and shrouded in secrecy. The world's leaders were talking, but their public words were a smokescreen for their private panic. While governments tried to control the narrative, the public created their own. The internet became a supercharged petri dish of speculation. Conspiracy theorists, who had been shouting about alien contact for decades, suddenly found themselves with the biggest "I told you so" moment in history. They unearthed ancient star maps from forgotten civilizations, drawing lines from celestial patterns to the exact coordinates in Zimbabwe. They decoded obscure prophecies and pointed to geological oddities, weaving a complex and compelling tapestry that suggested this event was not random, but preordained. Were the Dogon people of Mali, with their ancient knowledge of the Sirius star system, somehow connected? Was this the return of the Anunnaki? The theories were wild, but in a world where a force field had just appeared out of nowhere, what was truly unbelievable anymore? But let's zoom in from the global stage to the very heart of the event, to the town of Ruhar. Nestled right at the edge of the phenomenon, here, the story wasn't about geopolitical maneuvering or online debates. It was about people who looked up to see their sky transformed. The force field above them wasn't just a barrier, it was a canvas. Augmented reality patterns, beautiful and complex, danced across the shimmering dome. They swirled like galaxies being born, pulsed with soft, ethereal light, and formed geometric shapes that seemed to hum with a silent, cosmic intelligence. Life in Ruhar ground to a halt, but it didn't descend into anarchy. Instead, something remarkable happened. A unique and powerful sense of unity began to form. Strangers gathered in the town square, not in fear, but in shared awe. The usual barriers of age, belief, and background dissolved under the glow of the augmented sky. In one corner you could see a group of elders, their faces etched with the wisdom of years, leading a quiet, heartfelt prayer. Their ancient hymns mingled in the air with the excited chatter of teenagers a few feet away. These kids, raised on a diet of science fiction, were live streaming the event, their faces illuminated by their phones. They weren't just watching. They were analyzing, speculating. It looks like a Dyson sphere, precursor, one would say. No, it's a tesseract gateway, a portal to another dimension. Another would argue their sci-fi vocabulary, once a form of escapism, had suddenly become the most relevant language they had. This blend of the spiritual and the scientific was fascinating. The prayers and the physics theories weren't in conflict. They were two sides of the same coin of wonder. Both were attempts to comprehend the incomprehensible, to find meaning in an event that defied all known human experience. The town of Ruhar became a microcosm of humanity's collective response, a blend of reverence, curiosity, and an overwhelming sense that we were no longer alone. The media drones continued their silent vigil, broadcasting the tranquil scene from Ruhar to the rest of the world. And as people watched from bustling cities to isolated outposts, they saw not panic, but a community coming together. They saw humanity at its best, responding to the ultimate unknown not with fear, but with a shared sense of wonder. The ripples of the Zimbabwe contact were spreading, and they were changing not just our understanding of the universe, but our understanding of ourselves. What would happen when the force field finally came down? No one knew, but for the first time, the entire planet was waiting for the answer together. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed this story and want to explore more cosmic chronicles, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your theories in the comments below. Until next time, keep looking up. Have you ever had a moment where everything just stopped feeling real? A flicker in the corner of your eye, a sense of déjà vu so strong it rattles you to your core. For a small, unassuming town, that moment struck at precisely 12:20 p.m. 1 second, life was normal. The next, a collective shiver of doubt rippled through the community. Was any of it real? Was this all some kind of elaborate simulation? This wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was a tangible shift, a crack in the very foundation of their perceived world. People looked at their hands, at the faces of their loved ones, and saw code. Glitches. The questions started as whispers, then grew into a roar that echoed in every home, every street corner. What happened at 12:20? And more importantly, what did it mean for who, or what, they truly were? At the heart of this unfolding mystery was Professor Alistair Reed, a theoretical physicist who had long flirted with the fringes of science. For him, the event wasn't a shock, it was a confirmation. He gathered the bewildered townsfolk in the old municipal hall, his eyes alight with a fervor they'd never seen before. "We've been taught to see the world as solid, predictable," he began, his voice resonating with years of research. But that's a comforting lie. The truth is, reality bends at its quantum edges. At the smallest, most fundamental level, particles exist in a state of pure potential, a haze of probabilities. They only choose a state when we observe them. What if, he paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. What if our collective consciousness is the observer? And what if, at 12:20, the system running this observation hiccuped? He explained the simulation hypothesis, not as a sci-fi fantasy, but as a plausible, almost mathematical certainty. He spoke of computational limits, of processing power, and how a sufficiently advanced civilization could create a universe like ours. As easily as we create a video game. The townspeople listened, a mix of fear and fascination on their faces. The idea that their memories, their loves, their losses were nothing more than programmed data was terrifying. But it also offered a strange kind of explanation for the unexplainable. While Reed focused on the grand cosmic scale, another, more intimate fear was taking root among the town's parents. It started with the children. After the 12:20 event, they began describing things they couldn't possibly know. Young Sarah, who'd never left the county, described the shimmering chrome spires of a city under a twin-sun sky. Little Leo hummed melodies that were alien yet achingly familiar. They weren't just making things up. They spoke with a clarity and detail that was unsettling. The panic centered on the neural implants. At the Cadeago, a biotech firm had rolled out a revolutionary program. Small, organic implants designed to boost learning and memory, offered for free to every child born in the town as part of a pilot study. At the time, it was hailed as a miracle. Now it felt like a Trojan horse. Could these implants be the vulnerability? A backdoor. Had they been hacked? And not just by some terrestrial hacker, but by something else. The idea was insane, but no more insane than the world suddenly feeling like a dream. Parents rushed their children to the clinic, demanding answers, demanding the implants be removed. But the clinic was empty. The doctors gone. The company's records wiped clean. The visions weren't confined to the children. Adults started experiencing them too. Flashes of alternate lives, of different choices made. A mechanic would suddenly feel the phantom weight of a surgeon's scalpel in his hand. A baker would be overwhelmed by the memory of navigating a starship through a nebula. These weren't daydreams. They were vivid, sensoric experiences that felt more real than their actual lives. It was as if their minds were receiving uploaded data packets, memories and experiences from parallel worlds, from other versions of themselves. The town became a tinderbox of debate. In one corner were Professor Reed and his followers, the simulationists. They argued that these visions were simply glitches in the Matrix, the system's attempt to patch the error at 1220 by pulling data from other running instances, other simulated universes. Think of it like a computer's memory leak. Reed would say, data from one program is bleeding into another. These aren't your memories, but they exist within the same system. They saw it as proof, the ultimate evidence that their reality was constructed. On the other side were the mystics, led by a quiet librarian named Alara. She argued this was no simulation. Instead, she believed the 1220 event was a thinning of the veil, a gateway opening to the multiverse. She posited that consciousness isn't contained, but connected, a sprawling web that touches infinite realities. These aren't glitches, she countered in a town meeting, her voice calm but firm. They are echoes of your other selves, living other lives. We aren't in a prison of code. We're part of an infinite cosmic tapestry. And for the first time, we're finally able to see the other threads. Her camp saw it as an awakening, a spiritual level, a chance to learn from the infinite possibilities of their own existence. And then there was a third group, the skeptics. They were the pragmatists, the doctors, the engineers. They argued for a simpler, if no less frightening, explanation: mass hallucination. They pointed to a recent contamination of the town's water supply, a strange algae bloom that had been dismissed as harmless. What if it wasn't? What if some unknown psychoactive compound was released into the water system, triggering a shared psychosis? They argued that the brain, when under the influence of such a substance, could easily confabulate these elaborate narratives. The simulated, the multiverse, it was all just a symptom of a poisoned populace trying to make sense of scrambled brain chemistry. The debates raged. In the diner, simulation as it would argue with mystics over coffee, one pointing to the pixelated shimmer at the edge of a spoon as proof of a rendering error. The other seeing it as a portal to another dimension. Skeptics would try to intervene, urging everyone to drink bottled water and submit to medical tests. But how do you test for a fractured reality? How do you treat a symptom that might just be the truth? As the days turned into weeks, the fabric of the town frayed. People became obsessed with their visions. A man left his family, convinced his real wife and children were waiting for him in a reality where he'd become a celebrated artist. A woman spent hours staring into a mirror, trying to make contact with the other version of herself she saw living behind her eyes. The children, seemingly the most attuned to the shift, formed their own quiet society. They would gather in the woods, sharing their alien memories, drawing star maps of unknown constellations, and speaking in a language that was a mix of English and something else, something ancient and melodic. They seemed less scared than the adults, more accepting. For them, it was less a crisis and more of a discovery. Professor Reed, meanwhile, took his theory to its next logical step. If this was a simulation, it could be manipulated. He and his team of followers locked themselves in the university's old computer lab, attempting to find a root access, a command line for reality itself. They ran complex algorithms, searching for backdoors in the laws of physics, hoping to change a variable, any variable, to prove they had control. Their efforts caused strange phenomena-localized time loops, objects briefly losing their physical properties. It was enough to keep them going, a tantalizing hint that they were on the right path, but they were playing with forces they couldn't possibly comprehend. The world outside the town remained oblivious. News reports that trickled in seemed strangely bland, generic, as if generated by a simple AI. Weather patterns became perfectly, unnervingly predictable. It was as if the processing power of the simulation was being diverted to the town, leaving the rest of the world running on a loaded tail background setting. This only fueled the simulationists' beliefs. Alara and the mystics took a different approach. They didn't want to control reality. They wanted to understand it. They practiced meditation, trying to consciously navigate the sea of visions, to communicate with their alternate selves. They believed that by embracing the connection, they could achieve a higher state of consciousness, a synthesis of all their possible lives. Their path was one of acceptance, not resistance. The tension finally reached its breaking point during one of Reed's experiments to re-render a section of the town square. A power surge blew out every light in the town. In the ensuing darkness and panic, the three factions collided, in the eerie silence. Broken only by the whispers of the wind, a new question emerged, more terrifying than any that had come before. It didn't matter if it was a simulation, a multiverse, or a hallucination. The real question was, is it ending? What happens when the simulation is shut down, the gateway closes, or the hallucination fades? Do they simply cease to be? In that moment of shared dread, a child's voice cut through the darkness. It was little Sarah. She wasn't scared. She simply said, "It's okay. They're just waiting for us to choose." Choose what? A reality? A belief? Or was the choice itself the point? The final test in this bizarre, reality-bending experiment. The town stood on a precipice, not just between worlds or theories, but between fear and acceptance, between clinging to one reality and embracing the possibility of them all. The answer wasn't in the sky or in the water. It was inside each of them, waiting to be decided. Thank you so much for watching this journey into the unknown with us. If this story sparked your curiosity and made you question the world around you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating concepts. Let us know in the comments which theory you lean toward: simulation, multiverse, or hallucination. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay curious. The clock ticked past noon, striking 12:30. A strange, profound calm settled over the schoolyard, a silence that felt heavier and more significant than the usual lunchtime hush. The children, usually a whirlwind of chaotic energy, were now still, focused. In their hands, crayons and pencils moved with an uncanny purpose across fresh sheets of paper. They weren't drawing the typical houses, suns, or stick-figure families. No, their creations were something else entirely. One little girl, barely 7, sketched a pair of boots with intricate coils and glowing panels. Anti-gravity boots, she explained to a friend. Her voice mattered, so you can jump over buildings. A boy nearby was shading in a complex helmet design. "It's a mind shield," he whispered, pointing to the delicate circuitry he'd drawn. "It keeps your thoughts safe and helps you learn faster." Dr. Rari's Voss moved quietly among them, his tablet glowing softly as he documented each creation. He wasn't just a teacher. He was an observer, a chronicler of this unprecedented moment. 4 weeks, subtle changes had been rippling through the younger generation. Enhanced reflexes, quicker learning, flashes of intuitive understanding that defied all logic. But this was different. This was a collective outpouring of vision, a shared glimpse into a future that was, until now, the stuff of science fiction. Voss zoomed in on a drawing of a device that seemed to pull water from thin air, another that depicted seeds glowing with internal light, promising to grow in any soil. This wasn't just children's fantasy. It was invention. It was innate engineering. He felt a tremor of awe, the kind you feel standing on the edge of a great discovery. He was witnessing a turning point, not just in their young lives, but in the very trajectory of human evolution. The next step was manifesting, right here on crayon-smudged paper. The data streamed into his tablet designs concepts, nascent physics that shouldn't be possible for them to comprehend. He knew this information was priceless, a blueprint for a new era. These weren't just kids, they were pioneers, the first generation of a new humanity. Their minds already operating on a different plane, building the world of tomorrow before they'd even finished learning their multiplication tables. As the school bell signaled the end of lunch, the spell seemed to break. Parents began to arrive, their faces etched with the usual mix of love and end-of-day weariness. But as they saw the drawings their children clutched, their expressions shifted. Confusion gave way to wonder, then to a dawning, breathtaking realization. A mother knelt, tracing the lines of a floating city her son had drawn. She pulled him into a tight hug, her eyes shining with tears. She whispered into his hair, her words lost to the gentle breeze, but her emotion was clear. It was a mix of pride, fear, and overwhelming love for the incredible person he was becoming. Another parent held up a drawing of a handheld device that translated animal sounds into human language. He looked at his daughter, then back at the paper, a slow smile spreading across his face. He hugged her, a long, heartfelt embrace. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. The futures they had planned for their children, the college funds, the career paths, the simple, predictable lives had just been rendered obsolete. All around the schoolyard, similar scenes unfolded. Hugs became tighter, whispers more earnest. Parents were not just collecting their children. They were greeting ambassadors from the future. They were holding hands with the architects of a new world. The old dreams were dissolving, replaced by a new, more brilliant, and utterly unpredictable reality. Dr. Voss watched them, a sense of profound hope swelling in his chest. This was more than just a biological leap. It was a change of heart, a reforging of the bonds between generations. The children were the seeds, and the parents, with their love and acceptance, were the fertile ground. He saved his final data point for the day. A picture of a father and son, hand in hand, walking away from the school. The father was listening intently as the boy explained his design for a personal starship, pointing towards the afternoon sky. The future wasn't coming anymore. It had arrived. It was here, in the minds of these children and in the loving, astonished eyes of their parents. A new chapter for humanity had begun, not with a bang or a whisper, but with a gentle scratch of a crayon on paper in a parent's loving embrace, a promise of a future brighter than anyone had ever dared to imagine. Tonight, we journey deeper into the shadows, expanding upon the strange events that have captivated us all. The story we thought was isolated is beginning to reveal its global scale, connecting disparate points on a map of mystery. Recently, I received a cache of files from a fellow investigator, a man named Voss. His research is meticulous, his findings unsettling. These documents paint a picture far larger and more intricate than we ever imagined. The first file transports us to the rolling hills of rural Pennsylvania. Imagine a quiet, unassuming farm, generations old, suddenly becoming the stage for a silent, terrifying ballet. Multiple accounts, spanning years, describe the same chilling phenomenon. Massive, cloaked ships, almost invisible against the night sky, descending upon the farmland. Witnesses, often from neighboring properties, speak of strange lights and an unnerving silence that blankets the area. The farmers themselves, their stories are fragmented, whispered in hushed tones. They recount episodes of missing time, waking up in their fields with no memory of how they got there, their livestock agitated and sometimes bearing strange marks. The common thread in all these tales is the abduction, not of people in the classic sense, but of something more subtle. They feel their memories have been sifted through, their thoughts examined by an unseen intelligence aboard these shadowy vessels. It's a violation of the mind, a silent intrusion that leaves them feeling like specimens under a microscope from the quiet farmlands of America. Boss's next file whisks us across the Atlantic to the dense, ancient forests of Finland. Here, the encounters take on a different, yet equally disturbing character. Local folklore has long spoken of forest spirits, but these modern accounts are something else entirely. Hikers, hunters, and even small communities nestled on the forest's edge report encounters with the Watchers. These beings are described with eerie consistency. Tall, slender figures whose most prominent feature is their large, piercing red eyes. They don't seem to communicate verbally. Instead, those who have met them describe an intense, telepathic pressure, a sensation of their minds being forcefully scanned, their deepest fears and memories laid bare. One particularly harrowing account from a seasoned woodsman tells of being frozen in place, unable to move or scream, as a pair of these red-eyed watchers observed him from the tree line, their gaze feeling like a physical weight on his soul. He felt them sifting through his life, his childhood, his family, as if they were searching for something specific. He was released after what felt like an eternity, left trembling and forever changed by the encounter. These stories, from Pennsylvania and Finland, though separated by thousands of miles in different cultures, are not isolated incidents. They are puzzle pieces, fragments of a much larger cosmic web. The cloaked ships and the red-eyed watchers, are they connected? Are they two different facets of the same overarching phenomenon? Or are they competing forces in a silent, cosmic game being played out on our planet? Voss's research suggests a pattern. The abductions in Pennsylvania seem focused on data collection, a sterile, almost scientific examination of human consciousness. The mind scanning in Finland, however, feels more like surveillance, a search for something or someone. Each new account, each witness testimony, adds another layer of complexity to this global mystery. We are beginning to see that what we once thought were localized ghost stories or UFO sightings are actually echoes of a single, continuous, and deeply strange event. And it's here that our original story, the one that started this whole journey, finds its place. Remember the children? The ones who had their own inexplicable encounter, who saw something they couldn't explain in their own backyard. As they listened to these new tales from Voss's files, their eyes widened with a dawning, chilling realization. Their experience, which felt so unique and personal, was not an isolated event. It was just one thread in a vast, interwoven tapestry of the unknown. The strange lights they saw, the feeling of being watched, the sense of an intelligence just beyond their perception, it all clicked into place. They were not alone. Others, across the globe, had seen similar things, felt similar presences. This realization was both terrifying and, in a strange way, validating. It meant they weren't crazy. It meant what happened to them was real, but it also meant that the world was infinitely more mysterious and potentially more dangerous than they'd ever been taught. The implications are staggering. We are looking at a coordinated, worldwide phenomenon that has operated in the shadows for who knows how long. The methods are varied cloaked ships, silent watchers, but the objective seems to involve the human mind. Are they studying us, cataloging us, searching for something within our collective consciousness? The cloaked ships suggest a high level of technology, an ability to move undetected among us. The red-eyed watchers suggest a biological or psychic component, a direct interface with our thoughts. Are these different species, or different tools used by the same intelligence? The web is intricate, and we are only just beginning to trace its threads. The Pennsylvania farmers, the Finnish woodsmen, and the children from our first story are all unwitting participants in a drama of cosmic proportions. Their individual encounters are no longer just strange anecdotes. They are data points in a pattern, clues to a truth that has remained hidden for far too long. As we dig deeper, we must ask ourselves the hard questions. What is the endgame? If an intelligence with this level of capability is so interested in us, why the secrecy? The abductions are subtle. The surveillance is covert. It's not an overt invasion, but something more insidious, more surgical. It feels like we are a part of a grand experiment, and we are not even aware of the scientists. The psychological impact on the witnesses is profound. They are left with a sense of violation, paranoia, and a fractured understanding of reality. Their lives are irrevocably altered. They become keepers of a terrible secret, often ostracized or disbelieved by their own communities. But now, by connecting these stories, we give them a voice. We show that they are not alone. Their eerie echoes are resonating with others around the world, creating a chorus of testimony that is becoming too loud to ignore. The children, in particular, now carry a heavy burden. They're no longer just kids who saw something weird. They're witnesses in a global event. Their innocence has been pierced by a shot of cosmic reality. They understand that the monsters in fairy tales might not be fictional, but simply misinterpreted. The Watchers in the Finnish woods could be the basis for ancient legends of forest demons, and the cloaked ships in Pennsylvania could be the chariots of the gods from old myth. They now see the world through a new lens, one where the mundane and the extraordinary are separated by the thinnest of veils. Their journey has just begun, and in a way, so has ours. By following these threads, we are all becoming part of this unfolding narrative. We are moving from the realm of speculation into the territory of investigation, connecting the dots on a map that spans continents and centuries. The work of researchers like Voss is invaluable. It's through their tireless collection of data, their willingness to listen to the unbelievable, that we can start to see the bigger picture each file. Each interview is a precious piece of a mosaic we are slowly assembling. The patterns are emerging. A focused on rural, isolated areas, a non-confrontational but deeply invasive method of interaction, and a consistent theme of mental or psychic intrusion. The question is no longer are we alone, but rather who is with us, and what do they want? The eerie echoes are getting louder, more frequent, and more coherent. The puzzle is laid out before us, and it is our task, together, to try and solve it. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the unknown. The journey is far from over. In fact, it feels like it's just beginning. What do you think connects these disparate events? Are we on the right track? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you find these investigations as compelling as I do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more. Your support helps us continue to piece together this incredible, mysterious, cosmic web. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a sense of wonder? A feeling that we're not alone? Or maybe you've heard a story so strange, so unexplainable, that it sends a shiver down your spine. Today, we're diving headfirst into some of the world's most baffling mysteries, connecting dots that span continents and centuries. We'll journey from the quiet churchyards of England to the vast, empty skies of Montana and deep into the frozen heart of Siberia. What if these aren't isolated incidents, but pieces of a much larger, more incredible puzzle? Let's start in a seemingly peaceful corner of England, in Dorset. Here, nestled among ancient tombstones, something truly bizarre has been happening. For years, locals and paranormal investigators have been capturing footage of mysterious orbs of light. These aren't just camera flashes or dust particles. They move with an apparent intelligence, zipping through the air, sometimes hovering as if observing. Skeptics have tried to debunk them, but the sheer volume and consistency of the sightings are hard to ignore. Some witnesses claim to hear faint, whispering sounds when the orbs are near, almost like a coded language just beyond our ability to comprehend. What are spirits of the long departed, or something else entirely, trying to communicate a message we haven't yet deciphered? Now, let's jump across the Atlantic to Big Sky Country, Montana. Since the 1950s, this sparsely populated state has been a hotspot for UFO sightings. But we're not just talking about your typical flying saucers. Reports describe enormous, silent, black triangles that glide effortlessly through the sky, often at impossible speeds. Witnesses, including credible sources like pilots and law enforcement, have reported these craft hovering silently over remote areas, sometimes for hours. One of the most chilling aspects of these encounters is the phenomenon of missing time. People will report seeing a triangle, and the next thing they know, several hours have passed, with no memory of what happened in between. It's as if time itself is being manipulated or stolen. Are these top-secret military craft, or are we witnessing technology far beyond our own, conducting surveillance for reasons we can't possibly fathom? Our next stop takes us to one of the most remote and inhospitable places on Earth, the vast, icy wilderness of Siberia. Deep within these forests Local hunters and explorers have discovered something straight out of a science fiction movie. Strange, glass-like structures embedded in the permafrost. These formations are incredibly durable, almost impossible to damage, and have smooth, manufactured-looking surfaces. Local legends, passed down through generations, speak of a great battle in the sky, a war between celestial beings that resulted in fragments of their technology crashing to Earth. Scientists who have managed to study samples are baffled. The material doesn't match any known terrestrial alloy. Could these be the remnants of an ancient, interdimensional conflict? The crash sites of vehicles from another reality, frozen in time as a silent testament to a war fought in our skies long before recorded history. So, we have whispering orbs in a Dorset churchyard, time-stealing triangles over Montana, and the wreckage of a potential celestial war buried in Siberia. On the surface, they seem like completely unrelated, bizarre events. But what if they aren't? What if there's a common thread, a single, mind-blowing explanation that ties them all together? Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. We often imagine extraterrestrial contact as an invasion, a hostile takeover like in the movies. But what if Weve had it all wrong? What if we're not dealing with invaders, but with refugees? Imagine a civilization far more advanced than our own, facing a cataclysmic event. Their star is dying. Their world is being destroyed, or they are losing a war against an even more powerful force. Desperate, they don't seek to conquer us, but to preserve their own knowledge, their culture, their very essence. They are not colonizers, they are cosmic survivors, trying to send a message. But how do you warn a species like ours? A species that is still so young on the galactic stage. You can't just land on the White House lawn. The panic and misunderstanding would be catastrophic. No, you would need a more subtle approach. This is where the pieces start to click into place. The orbs in Dorset, whispering their ancient codes, might not be ghosts, but sentient data packets, living libraries containing the history and knowledge of a lost civilization. They are placed in locations of historical or spiritual significance, waiting for a time when we are ready to listen, when we have the technology and the wisdom to decode their message. They are a legacy, a gift of knowledge left for us to find. And the black triangles over Montana, they aren't stealing time for malicious reasons. Think of them as temporal archivists. If you wanted to preserve a species, you wouldn't just save their books. You'd want to save the species itself, at different points in their evolution. These craft might be creating small, localized temporal bubbles, taking snapshots of our world, our biology, and our consciousness across different timelines. They are not abducting people in the way we fear. They are creating backups of humanity, ensuring that a version of us survives, no matter what happens in the future. It's a cosmic preservation project on a scale we can barely imagine. Finally, we return to the glass forests of Siberia. If these are indeed crash sites, they might not be from a war fought here, but wreckage from the very disaster these beings were fleeing. Perhaps they were attacked during their exodus, and these fragments are all that's left of some of their ships. They are scars, reminders of the immense danger they faced and the incredible journey they undertook. They are also a warning of the powerful, destructive forces that exist in the universe, forces that could one day turn their attention towards us. So, when we put it all together, a new, profound narrative emerges. These global mysteries are not random events. They are the desperate, scattered breadcrumbs left by a refugee species. They are seeding warnings across our planet and across our timeline. The orbs are their libraries. The triangles are their archives. The Siberian wreckage is the evidence of their struggle. They aren't here to harm us. They are here to warn us and, in their own way, to help us. They are showing us the fragility of existence on a cosmic scale and leaving us the tools to potentially save ourselves. This theory changes everything. It reframes our place in the universe, not as a target, but as a potential inheritor of an ancient cosmic legacy. The next time you hear a strange story or see something unexplainable in the sky, maybe don't look at it with fear, but with a sense of wonder and compassion. We might just be bearing witness to the final, beautiful act of a civilization that chose to share its light with the universe, even as its own was fading. What do you think? Could this be the grand, unified theory of the paranormal we've been searching for? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. If you enjoyed this exploration into the unknown, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. Until next time, keep questioning and keep looking up. Have you ever stared up at the night sky and felt a strange sense of waiting? As if the stars themselves were holding their breath, anticipating something monumental. For generations, humanity's looked to the heavens, searching for answers, for connection, for a sign that we are not alone. We sent out probes, listened with giant radio dishes, and painted pictures of what might be out there. But what if the answer wasn't out there at all? What if it was right here, hidden within us, waiting for the right moment to awaken? This is the story of the day the wait ended. Not with a bang, but with a whisper that would change everything forever. It began like any other Tuesday. The sun rose, traffic hummed, and coffee was brewed. No one noticed the subtle change in the air, a certain static electricity that made the hairs on your arms stand up. In playgrounds across the globe, children laughed and played, their games filled with the usual dragons and superheroes. They were blissfully unaware that they were about to become the heroes of a story far grander than any they could imagine. The first sign came at precisely 9:03 a.m., coordinated across every time zone. It was a shimmer, a brief, silent distortion in the sky, like heat rising from asphalt, but everywhere at once. It lasted only a second. Most adults dismissed it a trick of the light, a moment of dizziness. But the children saw it. They stopped, mid-swing and mid-chase, and looked up, a silent, shared understanding passing between them. For the next hour, a strange calm descended. Animals grew quiet. The usual city noise seemed muffled. Then, the shimmer returned. Stronger this time. It wasn't just a visual distortion anymore. It came with a sound, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in your very bones. This time, adults couldn't ignore it. Panic began to bubble. News channels went into a frenzy, speculating wildly. Was it a solar flare? A new weapon? An atmospheric anomaly? Scientists were baffled, their instruments picking up energy signatures that defied known physics. Governments scrambled, unsure how to respond to a threat they couldn't define. Yet, amidst the growing chaos, the children remained eerily calm. They gathered in small groups, their faces turned upward, not with fear, but with a profound sense of recognition. It was during this second hour that the first real clue emerged. A neuroscientist, Dr. Aristo, was monitoring brainwave activity in a pediatric ward when the second shimmer hit. The data that flooded his screens was impossible. The children's brains, all of them, had synchronized. They were exhibiting a coherent, complex pattern of neural activity that mirrored the energy signature from the sky. It was as if their minds were in direct communication with the phenomenon. He realized with a jolt that this wasn't an external event happening to them. It was an internal event being triggered asterisk in them. The source of the mystery wasn't in the sky. It was encoded in human DNA, a dormant sequence waiting for a cosmic key. And that key, it seemed, was turning. Then, the third hour began, and the phenomenon revealed its true nature. The hum intensified, and the shimmer in the sky coalesced. It wasn't a wave of energy anymore. It was information, a deluge of data, broadcast on a frequency only the children's brains could perceive. On playgrounds, in classrooms, and in hospital beds, children closed their eyes. To onlookers, it was terrifying. Were they having seizures? Were they being attacked? But inside their minds, a universe of knowledge was unfolding. They saw the history of 1 billion years, the rise and fall of galactic civilizations, the intricate laws of physics that govern dimensions beyond our own. They saw cosmic predatory species, reality-warping anomalies, technological plagues that consumed entire star systems. And they learned the truth. Humanity was not a random accident on a lonely planet. We were a seed planted long ago by a progenitor race, a civilization of unimaginable wisdom known only as the Weavers. They had foreseen a coming darkness, a series of existential threats that would sweep through the galaxy. Unable to stop it all themselves, they enacted a grand, desperate plan. They seeded countless worlds with life, and within the DNA of their chosen inheritors, they embedded a gift and a burden. The archive, it was a library of all their knowledge, their technology, their history, and their warnings. The children of Earth were the latest in a long line of inheritors, chosen to awaken when the galactic season of peril was about to begin. The shimmers were the final activation sequence, the key unlocking the greatest library the universe had ever known. As the third hour drew to a close, a change became visible. A faint, intricate pattern of light began to glow on the foreheads of the children, just above their eyes. It looked like a circuit board made of starlight, a bioluminescent tattoo that pulsed in time with the cosmic hum. These were the implants, not a piece of technology inserted into them, but an organic part of them that had just been activated. It was the interface, the hardware that allowed their developing brains to safely process the torrent of information from the archive. They were no longer just children, they were becoming something more. They were being integrated, upgraded, transformed into living conduits for ancient wisdom. Imagine the scene, a world in panic, sirens wailing, adults running in fear and confusion. And in the middle of it all, tens of millions of children standing perfectly still, their faces serene, their foreheads glowing with an ethereal light. Parents reached for their sons and daughters, only to find an invisible, yet gentle, barrier preventing them. Not a wall of force, but a field of pure intention. A silent message that said, "Wait, we are safe. We are becoming." It was a moment of profound separation. The moment the path of humanity diverged. The adults could only watch, helpless, as their children were reborn before their very eyes. And then, as the 3-hour mark hit, it was over. The sky shimmered one last time faint, gentle, like a silent farewell from a parent watching their child take their first step. The hum faded into silence. The world held its breath. Slowly, the children opened their eyes. But the eyes it opened were not the same ones it had closed an hour before. They were still the eyes of children, yes, but they held a depth, a wisdom, and a gravity that was thousands of years old. They looked at their parents, at the chaotic world around them, and for the first time, they saw it not just as home, but as a responsibility, a charge to be protected. A little girl in a park in Tokyo turned to her frantic mother in a voice that was hers, yet held the resonance of 1,000 others. She said, "It's okay, Mama. The weavers have gone. Now, it's our turn." In a favela in Rio, a young boy put a hand on his grandfather's shoulder. "The sky is not falling, boy. It's just become a lot bigger." All over the world, the same scene played out. The children, now united by a single, vast consciousness, began to explain. They spoke of wormhole stabilization, of stellar shielding, of the non-linear temporal threats that lurked just outside our perception. They spoke with the casual authority of a mechanic explaining a faulty engine. The words were sci-fi, but the tone was matter-of-fact. This was their new reality. They were no longer just the children of Earth. They were its designated protectors, its first and last line of defense against the horrors the galaxy had to offer. The implants on their foreheads, humming with new purpose, were not just data ports. They were tools. They allowed them to perceive threats across space-time, to manipulate energy, to communicate telepathically, and to access the Weaver's technology, which was not built of metal and wires, but of pure thought and engineered biology. The children stood united, a silent, global network of guardians. Their playground games of superheroes had just become real. Their mission was clear: to protect their world, their families, their home, from the vast and terrifying sci-fi perils that lay beyond the veil of our understanding. This was not an ending, it was the beginning of the Eternal Watch. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey into a future we could never have imagined. What do you think would happen next? How would humanity adapt to their children becoming their protectors? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up. And do unit, forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do unit miss our next exploration into the unknown. Until next time, keep looking up.